Hello and welcome to the Bristol and Bath Lifting Club. My name is Mark.
And I'm supposed to say my name, which is Liam. We didn't agree to this. We've never done this before.
It's my first time doing an intro and I feel like cocked that up already. That was alright. That was fine. Alright, so today, guys, we are going to actually drop some knowledge bombs, I think.
We're doing actual education.
Education.
You're dropping an education bomb.
I am. It's going to be some golden nuggets in here.
Right. Is this one that our friend Trennis needs to pay attention to?
I think so. Trennis, if you're listening, stop taking trend. For one, stop taking trend and pay attention to these knowledge bombs.
I don't think he actually, as a disclaimer, I don't think he actually takes trend in any way, shape or form. He just has a really super big interest in it.
He's a bit sus.
A bit sus, as they say.
So today, guys, I think we're going to talk about programming and maybe a bit of periodization.
Okay. So programming, what programming languages do you speak?
I speak the programming language of the lifting.
So this isn't C or C Sharp or anything like that?
No, this isn't Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, okay. This is programming as in, basically, some people, smart people, decide before they get to the gym what they're actually going to do at the gym.
Yeah,
not just for today, but for what is entirely one entire program, which I don't know, mine normally lasts for 1 to 2 months. Do you have standard kind of programming?
Yeah, so usually when I'm writing like out a program, let's say I'm following like a block periodized program. So I might follow like a 6 to 12 week block where I'm doing certain things in that block in order to help me progress. And that could be anything from like a different type of progression scheme or a specialization phase or working on weaknesses, or maybe I'm focusing on strength, maybe I'm focusing on muscle gain. But yeah, usually like a program will last a period of time. And I would just block periodize it going forward.
Right, so block periodization and stuff like that is going to go over the heads of a lot of people.
Yeah.
One of the issues I tend to find is that the very people that should not probably be doing that are the very people that want to spend a lot of money on quote unquote advanced lifting programs and stuff like that. They want to download things and pay quite a lot of money, hundreds of pounds, if not dollars, for sometimes these things, when actually, if you're a beginner, so if you're starting out, and I suppose you could give potential like strength standards and stuff like that for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to keep with something that's quite simple. And by simple, I don't mean ineffective in any way, shape or form. I think in any training program, you need to really actually understand why each exercise is there, why it's in that order. You need to have and get to grips with what the point of the programming is, which is something that I really do with all of my clients. Is I start doing them basic programs and stuff like that and teach them about the lifts, how to do it, but also why I've put in the program versus something else. And then I also, after a month or a couple of months, I normally get them to design their own program so that I can laugh at them.
My client told a very funny story today. No, but yeah, guys, if you're a beginner, do not overcomplicate things. Like full body workout 3 times per week on the big major compound exercises, you know, like your squats, your deadlifts, rows, overhead press, bench press, dips, you know, things like that. That is more than enough. And then just follow a basic linear progression. Try to add weight workout to workout or week to week until you can't anymore. And in terms of strength standards, the way I classify someone who's a beginner, obviously they've just started, but for young men, I would say, unless you can overhead press 60 kilos, bench 100 kilos, row 100 kilos, squat 140 and deadlift 180, I would say you're still in your beginner phase of training.
I'll write that in the show notes.
Yeah, please do. But it's all over my Instagram as well. Like I put a lot of this stuff out for free.
What's your Instagram?
lock_strength.
Which I'll put in the show notes.
Ooh,
well, it's complicated, isn't it? But it's also very simple.
That's really cool.
People in this day and age, particularly younger people, have very short attention spans. They're not going to pause and rewind and write down stuff down with a pen and paper.
They've probably already switched off.
They've probably, yeah. The two people that are listening, they just want to click on something and highlight it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so as a beginner, keep it keep it simple, stupid. You know, get strong at your bang for your buck movements. That should be your main priority in that first year of training. And then, you know, once linear progression, so adding weight to the bar every session or every week, starts to stop, then you need to start taking programming a bit more seriously. If you haven't got a coach already, hire a coach. Otherwise, do plenty of research and learn about periodization and how to get your lifts moving forwards, going from there.
So one of the big common things about people that start and have been lifting for, say, a couple of months to a year, maybe even multiple years, to be fair, they always say, well, I don't need to track it because I always remember what I do. And I always say, if you look at an actual program that you've done from a month ago or even the current month that you're on, it will highlight, there's data, it's collecting data, it will highlight things like the amount of plateaus and simple slight alterations that I've made to programs that have really, really helped people have been based on information from that program. It's not necessarily always been watching someone and correcting their form. It's literally a case of, well, wait a minute, you're doing that exercise first and you're always failing that other exercise, which is technically more important for your goals. Let's reverse the order. Yeah. Because who wants to do squats first?
Exactly.
You know? It's exactly. Like that kind of thing, which I've done that myself. Like I did today, I did bench press and that, and then it also had squats. And I used to do the squats first because I think I want to get them out of the way and that. But actually, bench press, doing that first, fresh, I made more progress doing that. And it doesn't really impact the squats. However, when I did the squats, that really impacted my bench press.
Those big lower body lifts take up a lot of energy. And even like, you know, was it silver era bodybuilders like Leroy Colbert? He was like, finish with squats, finish with your legs, get the upper body out the way first, because it does take up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's really important. So you can make little tweaks to people's programs just to keep them ticking over. So yeah, changing the exercise order, maybe adding in an additional set to increase the volume, following a dedicated progression scheme if they're not already.
So I don't necessarily have a set program like one that you could print out and stuff like that, which is I give to every client, but I can give you the formula. So the formula is basically is going to be a 3-day a week, you know, to start with. On each of the days, there's going to be 1 or 2 what I class as primary lifts. So those lifts, exercises, are going to be big compound movements. It's normally the big 5, but it depends on people's mobility and stuff like that. With a session, I'd be able to assess, actually, can someone squat at the moment, or do they actually need learn how to squat properly? One of the big things that I tend to do with a lot of people is actually we do front squats more often than back squats to start with, just because the amount of people that are like straight over hunched up, it's like, no, actually you'd benefit from just starting with the front squat because it would keep your posture better.
Keep that thoracic extension.
But I take 3 days a week. Those are going to be the training days. 1 to 2 compound movements, which I normally highlight as these are the really important ones. We learn them. People get an understanding of actually they balance out the body. So there'll be some sort of row, there'll be some sort of overhead press, there'll be a squat normally. It all makes sense from a logical perspective of this training the entire body. Then what I do is that I have accessory movements or accessory things, which aren't necessarily single joint or what they call isolation. So they're not necessarily just lat pull down or something like that. But those are there to support those other lifts, to help those other lifts come up. And then the other ones that I have, which I normally highlight again in like italics or something, is recovery, because people come into the gym and they have quirks, I would say, or they are recovering. I take a lot of clients on after they've finished with their physiotherapy and stuff like that, so they still have a little bit of way to go to healing. People don't think of, well, actually the lady that comes in and she can't squat parallel, that is, to me, that's something that needs to be trained. That needs to be something that needs to be taken seriously as an increase in range of motion and mobility and all that kind of thing, which to me, that would be recovery. And I've got someone that they can't, as I do, someone that bench presses, but they can't touch the bar to their bench because of an injury. That's something that really actually needs to be worked on, increase the range of motion and such. So from mine, it's primary, secondary, and then the third is normally some form of, you know, mobility work or something like that. And then, of course, I always end with a stretch. the best stretch in the world.
The dead hang.
The dead hang.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much how I do it as well. So I'm currently running like an upper-lower split, and every day will have its main lift. So we have, on both lower body days, we've got the squat and the deadlift as the main lifts, and on the upper body days, we got the bench and the overhead press. And I just train into kind of like antagonist muscle groups, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm doing on my bench day, if I'm starting with a bench, which is a horizontal push, I'll do some sort of row as a horizontal pull. Same with the overhead press, vertical push, vertical pull. If I'm starting with my heavy squat on my squat day, that's my low bar competition squat, then I will follow up with a lighter deadlift variation, like an RDL, or stiff-legged deadlift, something that's lighter by nature. And then on the deadlift day, I will follow up with a lighter squat by nature. So like a front squat or an SSB squat. Something that's going to force me to use less weight than my main movement. And then, that's not everything I do. Like Liam, I'll back it up as well. So you have like your assistance exercises, which are similar to the main lifts, and they will help drive the main lifts up. They will help correct muscle imbalances or weak links in the chain. And then I'll do the accessory movements, the smaller movements that will help just kind of like round out the whole workout, round out the physique. That's quite basic programming, but basics work really well.
So what I'd like to do for the average beginner, because the majority of people that consume fitness content aren't actually people that even do any form of fitness. They're people that want to kid themselves into thinking that they're making a start by listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video. Cool. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
So for people that are really serious about starting out, so we've got the strength standards. For those people that have not met those strength standards that Mark listed earlier and that's in the podcast description, we will put a link to a training program that you can buy very cheaply that will be the sort of thing that you're probably not going to get from YouTube, because the problem is with YouTube and some of these other fitness plans and stuff like that is that it just tells you the exercises. It doesn't tell you why the exercises are there. So what we're going to do is we'll create something that you can actually download that will have an exercise program that you can take to the gym, you can tick off, but it'll also have reasons and justifications for why they're in that order. Should give you an understanding of how programming actually works from a basic level. With regards to advanced people, that needs to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, pretty much. And that first year, guys, that you're lifting, you really want to focus on building a strength base. Okay, I've said this many times, but you don't want to get stuck like I did in what I term novice purgatory.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was lifting for years, and I think I got like photos from way back where I'd been lifting for close to like eight years, and I didn't even look like I lifted.
Like fluff and pump training?
Yeah, pretty much. I wasn't getting stronger over time. I wasn't
like
tracking my numbers. Exactly like Big Man.
You will remember Big Man from the previous episode.
The MVP. But yeah, like it's true. Like I got stuck in novice purgatory. And that was for a few different things, which I'll list now. One, I wasn't tracking my workouts. I was winging it, which I wasn't getting stronger over time. I wasn't pushing progression. Over-reliance on machines as opposed to building a strength foundation on free weights was another one. And also I wasn't eating enough. So we talk a lot about tracking workouts, but you also need to be tracking your nutrition, especially if you're a skinny dude who struggles to gain weight. You need to be tracking everything you're eating so you can actually get the nutrition you need to get bigger and actually bulk up. Because that's a problem I had for a very long time. I simply wasn't eating enough. So yeah, I got stuck in novice purgatory, trained for years, and yet still didn't even reach strength standards that I should have got in the first year.
Yeah. A lot of people think that they are somehow innately special and that the laws of physics do not apply to them, the laws of thermodynamics.
Yeah, I've met a few of those people.
And at the end of the day, it's very true. There's a lot of people which come in and I coach, and the first thing we need to do after we've learned the exercise is actually learn what heavy actually feels like, and what effort actually feels like, because we do like the RPE scale, rating of perceived exertion, or the how fucking difficult on a scale of 1 to 10 is it scale, right? Which is what I normally call it. And we normally try to get people for an 8 out of 10. 9 out of 10's dying, and a 10 out of 10 is you're dead.
Yeah.
Most people, when they say I'm doing an 8 out of 10, what they really mean is a 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10. And I can always spot the people that are doing an 8 out of 10 because between each set, they have to sit down.
Yeah. I mean, I sit down in between all my sets.
Yeah, well, you work hard.
Yeah, I'm like crawling out the gym by the time I finish. But it's true. You need to be training with a high degree of intensity. So you don't have to be at failure where you can't do another rep, but you need to be pretty close to it. You need to be training within close proximity to failure so you can actually spark that adaptation that you're looking for. Yeah, I think that's super important.
So in terms of the fitness industry and stuff, there's a lot of people, because it can be very divisive, but there's lots of kind of camps and categories and stuff like that people tend to slot into.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with the way social media works and everything, with algorithms, the algorithms know, and they try to feed you content based on kind of like lookalike audiences and mirrors of what it thinks you want. So if you are a beginner, it's very scary. The amount of shit content, YouTube, Instagram, and all these other pieces, TikTok, and that will throw at you.
Yeah.
Which is really, really dangerous.
There's a lot of crap out there.
Yeah.
I always tell people, don't follow these big social media influencers. Follow the people who have like a small following, but you can see that they're really strong. They've got a good physique. Follow them. They're not just posting.
Follow us.
Yeah, they're not just posting pictures of their butts, guys, and flexing in the mirror. They actually know what they're doing. But yeah, all these fitfluencers who don't really have a clue are getting all these followers and all this like traction. But really, it's the unknown channels that you want to be following. They know their shit. They've been in the trenches. They've trialed and failed with multiple different approaches. Follow them. They'll get you to your goals.
There's a lot of very clever and very smart and very experienced people in health and fitness that are really good role models, that know a lot and that can really help you. I think one of the dangers is very much like science.
Yeah.
Is that scientists, very smart scientists, they're really bad at communicating anything to do with science. They're really bad at teaching, and the sort of communication, the words, the way they explain things is not what the average person kind of understands.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues, is that when you hear about, well, plates aside, what the fuck does that mean? Your average person isn't going to know that. And a lot of people with some form of advanced knowledge or with some experience forget that. And there's not a lot of really good, because the beginner stuff that you need to learn, there isn't a huge amount of it. It is really rather simple, but the problem is a lot of people don't make money in the fitness industry by keeping things simple. They try to
reinvent the wheel,
make things overly complicated.
Exactly.
Are there any big culprits that you think?
I mean, we've got an episode in the future titled Controversy.
I think there's one about what was it, something along the lines of a certain slippery fish.
Yeah, exactly, the slippery fish. We all know the brand. But yeah, there's a bit of controversy there with their athletes putting out information when it's not really fair, seeing as their athletes, quote unquote, are taking a lot of extra substances.
What about the world famous V-Shred?
Ooh, V-Shred.
And the world famous Athlean X?
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch too much content anymore on YouTube, but you know, Athlean X, Jeff Cavalier, he's a physiotherapist. He knows his stuff in relation to the body, but his training isn't great, I would say. As a strength coach, I don't think his training is all that good.
There are people with regards to content creators like that. Some people will say, well, he's doing it on purpose to keep people small and weak so that he can sell them yet another program.
Right.
I don't know whether that's true. There's some people as well that might say, which is probably more along the lines of how I'd feel about it, is that certainly people from certain backgrounds like physiotherapies and stuff, because they only ever deal with people when they've had an injury.
Yeah.
All they see is, oh, this person's torn this person's done that.
Yeah.
And actually that does flavour what your thought process is. And, you know, particularly younger people, they can take a complete beating in the gym and recover. Older people, potentially not as much. But actually, as long as you're doing proper work and you're doing exercises correctly selected, and you're doing it with proper form and stuff, the chances are you're not going to hurt yourself. However, with regards to people like that, they put a lot of thought and effort into saying, don't do this exercise, this is going to break your shoulder. It's like, don't do that exercise, that's really dangerous.
No, and like the body's more resilient than that. Like, and also, like, if I was to hire a coach, I'm probably not going to hire a physiotherapist. I would hire a dedicated strength coach. But yeah, the body's more resilient than that. I don't like black and white thinking in general when it comes to fitness. I think Jeff at one point was like really going off one about upright rows, saying how bad they are.
But he does it, and then a bunch of other people join in kind of mirror.
Yeah, then it just builds, isn't it? But actually, upright rows are a fantastic exercise. I've been doing them since I started. They're really good for building the shoulder, the traps, the whole shoulder girdle. And they're great if you're into like your power cleans or your high pulls. They're going to be a really good assistance exercise for building up those movements. Upright rows are awesome. Gets a bad rap. Yeah. But yeah, no, not all exercises are created equal, obviously. But there isn't really such thing as a bad exercise unless you're just doing something really stupid.
I don't think you've been on the TikTok, because if you go on the TikTok, there is such a thing as a bad exercise.
Exactly. Stupid shit.
It's not like, because back in the day, people talk to them like talk about like fitness people and that, and they'll look at these TikTok channels and they say like they're a bunch of clowns. It's like a circus. The strong men back in the circus back in the day, they used to do some cool looking and dangerous ass stuff.
Yeah.
But they trained very seriously for it.
Yeah.
And it didn't involve one of those fucking Bosu balls balancing two and then your friend on a bench on top of it.
Well, they call it
like
functional
crazy.
training, isn't it? Functional training.
What a crock of shit.
I know. I'll tell you what's functional. Getting really fucking strong. That's functional.
And the functional things that, might save your life one day, not that it probably ever will. Like when you have to, your bedroom's on fire and the only way out is to go out the window, but are you big enough to fit through the window for one?
Yeah.
And can you pull yourself up? Those dips and pull-ups and all that sort of thing might be useful there.
And if you're too big to fit through the window, just be strong enough that you can create a new window.
That's kind of logical advice. Yeah. I mean, it might be all right if it's a plasterboard wall or something like that. I mean, some of the people that live in these old cottages where the walls are like a metre thick, maybe not.
Yeah. You might have to get pretty damn strong to do that.
I guess probably the easiest thing is to not leave a candle unattended.
Yeah, I mean, fire safety, folks.
Check the batteries in your smoke detector, and if you are smart enough to get smoke detectors, make sure you've got a carbon monoxide detector as well. The silent killer, you see.
There we go. It's not all about being functional. It's just about
survival.
Having good fire hygiene.
They do say life is about survival, and people can overthink about that.
Going back to survival.
Yeah.
Isn't weightlifting just an adaptation?
Well, there's a lot of adaptation that goes into weight training, and that's part of the recovery, isn't it?
Yeah, survival is about adapting, and then lifting weights is an adaptation, getting stronger to the adversity of weightlifting.
Do you know what is widely considered to be the oldest lift in the world?
Hold on, let me ponder this. The oldest lift in the world.
Yeah, the oldest exercise.
It's got to be some sort of overhead press, right?
No, it's not. It is the deadlift.
Really? Not cavemen putting stones above their head?
Deadlift, because that would be the first thing that you would have to do, and you would have evolved to pick something up. So if it was a boulder or if it was something heavy, then the deadlift is the most... And nowadays, you think about it, if you were to move anything in your house that was heavy... It's kind of a deadlift. It's going to be a deadlift
and
style
actually,
type thing.
If you want to get real technical, if you're lifting heavy shit, it's most likely going to be a sumo deadlift as well.
Ooh. How many cavemen know about the sumo deadlift?
Well, I remember I did removals once and I had to move a lot of carpets, and you get one guy either end of the carpet and you pick it up, and I was essentially doing a sumo deadlift. I don't think I've ever lifted anything conventional, doing a conventional deadlift to pick something off the floor before. It's always been some sort of sumo deadlift squat variation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it would be the sumo deadlift potentially.
Sumo deadlift is probably the oldest lift in the world. Whoa.
There we go.
And it gets so much hate.
Yeah, it does get hate. Why is that? People say that it's fake and isn't real.
People think it's cheating because
yes, that's it. Cheating.
You're in a more upright position, so it's safer on the lower back, and also the range of motion is smaller. But honestly, guys, I've got nothing but respect to heavy sumo pullers. I'm way stronger at conventional. And that's because, for me, once the weights start getting heavy, trying to pick up heavy weight off the floor with a wide stance is really difficult. Like, try and jump really high with a wide stance. It's hard to generate power. So I've got nothing but respect for sumo pullers. Yeah.
I don't really train sumo. I don't really have anything against it, but it's because I never really got to the level of at conventional that I want to get to, and I prefer and I enjoy it, and I only do it once every other week, so it's not something that I definitely have a problem against. My PT, however, always said, no, we don't do that because it's cheating, which I always thought was interesting. But of course, the thing is, when you don't know and you've got a personal trainer that so has a qualification, you're going to trust them because you're literally paying them to teach you. So it was really interesting. He never justified it other than just saying that it was cheating because of the range of motion thing.
Yeah.
But
I like all deadlifts. I treat them all equally. Like, obviously in competition, I pull conventional. But the hex bar deadlift, high handle, low handle, I love. RDLs, I love. Stiff leg deadlifts, block pulls, rack pulls. Any deadlift variation is a good variation in my books. They're not all created equally, but they are all very, very fun and functional. Yeah. It's probably one of the most functional movements you can do.
Okay, so we've basically slagged off functional fitness.
Yeah, we did.
But what is functional fitness in your opinion?
Well,
because it's for everyday, it should have crossover to your everyday life, shouldn't it?
Yeah, see, I'm quite biased because I'm more of a strength guy, you know. So functional to me is getting really strong because strength is never a weakness. So whether you're playing a sport like a field sport or a contact sport, you know, a martial art, being strong is not gonna make you less skilled. It's not gonna, you know, ruin your sport of choice. It's only going to make you better.
What about tickle porn?
Tickle porn?
Is that a sport? Because that's all about very subtle, dinky little fingers and that. I mean, calluses with tickle porn is going to be real bad, isn't it?
Hey, I have never heard of tickle porn.
You'll have to Google tickle porn.
I think your internet history is darker than mine.
It's not something that I'm into, but it was a conversation that I had with a client.
Damn. They just came out.
They didn't say whether they were into it. Right. I normally suspect when people come out with such things.
I mean, if they're bringing it up, they're probably
might
into
be.
It, right?
But we were talking about obscure things.
Yeah.
But tickle porn came up. But it just reminded me of tickle porn.
Well, I guess if you've got calluses, it's not going to be functional.
There's this. The reason why it came up, actually, because I feel like I'm having to justify this now, is that they were talking about a documentary that they watched, which was all about tickle porn, which was this secret society and this kind of group that broadcasts what's essentially people being tickled and such.
Right.
But they're really, really creepy about it. So they pay large amounts of money for people to be tickled, but certain demographics of people, certain types of people to be tickled. But there's like this big kind of cult surrounding it, and like you try to track down who runs the company and all that, and it's like really, really dodgy, next level stuff. Anyway, more about that maybe in a future podcast.
You know, sometimes I'm happy I got into the fitness industry. I took that route instead.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, if you weren't in health and fitness, then what would you be into?
I don't know, man. I was in the martial arts for a long time.
It would probably be martial arts, wouldn't it?
Two are very similar in a way. But yeah, before gym and the fitness industry, I was in the martial arts industry. Still kind of am, but yeah.
Right, well, that is it for this edition of the podcast. If you look at the strength standards and you're not currently meeting them, then you need to pay us a little bit of money to access this super brilliant program, because it'll get you there. Also, we'll talk about programming in more detail, because I feel like we went off the rails there. Hey, we've got to drag this out for like hundreds of episodes. I'm sure we can cover great programming in multiple ways. Stay tuned to episode 80, guys. We'll cover it again. They say the 100th episode is probably going to be the best. I thought that was going to be your embarrassing reveal, right? Maybe. Bye, everyone. Bye.